The BYD Atto 2 has been beaten already, and it isn't even out in Europe yet. But wait until you hear the prices. In August this year, 2024, Dongfeng brought their Dongfeng Nammi box to Europe. It's actually a really nice car. Weird name, I suppose. A few people have commented on this already. It's currently for sale, actually, in Europe at a great price. I'll get into this in a second. And it seems to tick basically every box for me, even the weird little technical ones like having real thermal management on the batteries, things like that. LFP chemistry, for example. But when you reconcile it to the new BYD Atto 2, then actually, I don't see how you can reasonably spend that extra money on the BYD. Hello folks, I'm Ben Alexander. I make EV news videos. Sorry for not being online for, I think it's 11 days or 12 days now. I've been very, very ill, really ill. And I've had a really bad lung infection from doing gardening. When you mow the lawn and you pick the grass up and you do stuff with the grass, I breathed in some of that. The one time I didn't wear a mask and I got a really bad lung infection and just felt like I was being choked all the time. Really awful experience. So let's start by comparing the Nammi and the Atto 2. So the price in Norway right now, I'll put it on screen, 217,900 kroner, Norwegian kroner, which is about 23 to 25,000 euro, depending on the model and the spec that you choose. That's about 30,000 AU dollars. And that comes with the top battery, which is 42 kilowatt hour, which is, they've got a smaller one, which is about 31 kilowatt hour. On the website called Thin, you can see these currently for sale right now in Kristiansand. I've emailed the company and asked them if I could come and have a look at it and film with it. They said yes. If you'd like me to do that, just let me know in the comments. If a few people do, I will actually endeavour to go and film with it and drive it around and show you it. I could also do a 4K close-up video, which is a video where I go really close to all the little weird bits and underneath and in the wheel arches and the brakes, and I just look at everything really close and just assess it. So if you want me to do that too, let me know in the comments. I genuinely would consider buying one. I really would. I've just got the one stipulation that there aren't too many bings and bongs on it, and that it drives okay and it's all right. But the bings and bongs, that's the stuff that makes people a bit crazy, I think. Like when you wash the car, you leave the door open, and it beeps incessantly, constantly, when you just want to have the door open and cleaning the door shuts and rinse it and you want to play some music and stuff like that. And the car just beeps incessantly. Some cars do that, some cars don't. It seems a bit of a modern thing. I know some people feel the same as me about that sort of stuff. So the Atto 2, that comes in a 95 horsepower version or 170 horsepower version in the fastest version. In the slow version, that's the one I would get. That you can get that with a 42.4 kilowatt hour battery, but that will cost a lot more than the smaller one. The Atto 3 starts at around 45,000 euros in Europe, and it's expected that the Atto 2 is going to be around £30,000, 36,000 euro to 39,000 for the bigger battery, which I think is a lot more, basically, for a car that has very similar specs on it, and it's importantly, it's on the cheaper end of the spectrum. And people are less frivolous at this end of the market, but it does come with a BYD badge, which is obviously a positive thing. The quality is up there and very good, so they can charge a little extra for that, but probably not this much more, I don't think. So I want to know, how can we ignore this? Because when you compare them, they're very comparable. So the Atto 2 has already got some competition. The Dongfeng Nammi box, that comes with a bit of a strange name. I understand that. So it's 10 or 12,000 euros difference in price. And I'm going to bet that the BYD is nicer to touch and feel and to steer and to press the brakes and the feel, the switches, the look and feel of it all. I reckon BYD will ace that, as they normally do. But the Dongfeng, they've been making cars since 1969 in China. So they're also pretty good at making cars, just not perhaps as finessed as BYD. BYD generally have higher quality than lots of other cars coming out of China. The current hole in the market is the really cheap end of the market. So the Honda Jazz, Honda Fit if you're American, Toyota Yaris, those little basic cars that are base models, not really swanky in any way, come with a really cheap price tag. And I've never seen one that's electric, really, outside of the BYD Seagull. A lot of us have been waiting for one that's actually going to be in Europe, where all of the boxes are seemingly ticked. And this one does tick them. So just like the BYD Seagull, the Nammi is the next one after that actually ticks all the boxes, and it's really, really cheap. So I've never seen so many comments about the BYD Seagull. This is an interesting thing. In the comments section, I've never seen such enthusiasm about any other car, period. The BYD Seagull, entirely a different league of its own. I think there's a bit of a cult following for people that they really want it, they can't buy it, but that is going to come to Europe in the next 24 months. And people who are keen to get a new EV but don't want to pay the early adopters tax or buy a Tesla or something a bit more upmarket or swanky, such as like 40, 50, 60,000 euros, they've been waiting patiently. I know there's a load of people there in the comments always telling me that they would buy one. They just don't really want to spend too much money on it. The people that want a Yaris or a Honda Jazz, which is a lot of people. And so you could say they could have the Citroen EC3, the Dacia Spring, but they actually don't come with proper thermal battery management systems and valves, the clever valves and the pipe work and the stuff that makes that stuff happen and be good in very hot climates like Greece or Hungary and places like that. And I know that the sort of people up until this point buying EVs aren't stupid. They're very in the know. They know stuff. They're well informed, and they know that batteries definitely need to have thermal management systems on, and that car companies like Citroen typically have a bad reputation for electronics, even though they're quite compelling and quite nice cars to drive and be in. And now obviously Citroen make electric cars because they're owned by Stellantis. They're making small electric cars, but still they generally don't come with battery management systems on them. People know this. Those two things is not really a great combination, I don't think. Again, BYD offer for $1,000 more than the base version, the upper model of the BYD Seagull, with an extra 7 or 8 kilowatt hours in the battery, with thermal management on it, proper management with AC and some valves and some stuff going on to make it work properly and to cool batteries down in Greece, for example, really hot climates, not just blowing ambient air over. So basically my point is people know. People who like EVs generally are tech people. They understand that they absolutely need to have proper thermal management on them. There's no excuses for that. There are some people that I know who bought a BYD Dolphin rather than a Yaris. And they've told me in the comments on 2 occasions, actually, people have done that. And it's almost cheaper to buy in certain European countries, like in France, for example, when you get your rebates and the money off. And it's electric, so you avoid instantly paying European petrol prices for a car such as a Yaris. And that's a massive bonus, obviously. And also people like the experience of driving electric cars, generally speaking, I think more than petrol cars. It's quiet, you're a bit more relaxed. That's a good thing. It generally feels a bit cheaper to put some kilometres on the car as well. So Toyota do make great cars, but everyone seems to agree these days that the quality has slipped and they now charge way too much for their cars. The BYD Dolphin, I think, is really good value, and that's something to consider. People are considering, and they're buying those cars over legacy brands like Toyota now. Remember that you can also join on Patreon and YouTube members, and there's also live streams going on and all sorts of perks. There's also a Facebook group for literally anybody. If you just want to join that, you can do that, and you can be a part of the community, which I think people seem to enjoy being a part of. To conclude, small, cheap electric cars that come with good technology on the batteries and real range and a genuinely cheap price are coming this year and the year after that. So 2025, 2026. That is very evident. So the Hyundai Insta or Casper, BYD Seagull, they will be made in Europe, in Hungary, once the new plant is finished. They're currently in the middle of building it. Other manufacturers like Dongfeng, they're now already here. So it's an exciting time, especially for me in this channel, because I know so many of the people that watch these videos that I make, you're very keen on this part of the market, this segment, these cheaper cars, smaller hatchbacks and little cars, for those to come to Europe and actually be available to buy for a cheap price. So if you want to get these updates as they arrive, then feel free to subscribe and stay with us. That would be really nice. And have a chat in the comments. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate that. Thank you for being patient, and thank you for the nice messages and the couple of emails I got. I've also got my bike. So I'm currently here in Australia. I'm on the east coast of Australia, not so far from Brisbane. If you want to buy my bike, basically, this is just a bike I've got, and I don't really use it much these days. It's very rare. You can have that if you want it for a very, very cheap price. If anybody's interested, just let me know, send me a message in the comments, and I can meet you and drop it off and give it to you, or you can take it for a ride. I just kind of want to give it to a good home, and I feel like it would be a nice way to give it a new home is if somebody who watched my videos bought it for just a really cheap price. I'm not asking for a lot of money. And the battery is, I think it's 52 volts, and it's a 1.2 kilowatt hour battery. And generally, you can ride it throttle only. It will do at least 35 kilometers an hour everywhere. It will go up every single hill. I think the motor is actually rated as an 800 watt motor, but it sort of lives at 1,000 or 1,500, something like that. The controller is a 1,500 watt controller on it. And where you use that would be up to you. I don't know. The brakes, they're not the best brakes in the world, but I've got spare parts for them. They're drum brakes, but they work all right. And yeah, it's a really cool bike. I love it. I've done thousands of kilometers on it, and I like to ride that in around the city whenever I'm in the city. But I'll be back in the coming weeks in Europe, so and I'm in Europe basically. So yeah, it'd be really nice. I've also put on there recently 2 new inner tubes and some Schwalbe cargo tires, so that it stops so they don't get punctures basically, and they can carry I think 200 kilos each, something serious like that. They're really good tires. So yeah, if you're interested, let me know. Just find my email. I'll put it on screen now for you. Just send me an email and let me know if you want it. Otherwise, it will just sit. It will just sit there, not being used. So I've got a quick charger for it as well, 600 watt charger, which is pretty new. It's less than a year old, and that charges a bit, not very long. That's pretty cool. And a little screen that tells you the percentage on the battery and that sort of thing. So yeah, pretty nifty bike. A little bit DIY, but reliable, and it works, and it's all done all right, and the solder connections are done all right, and I've tried to make it so it's reliable and pretty straightforward, and yeah, pretty nifty.